Hello, thank you for tuning into this online resource. I'm going to be doing a case study of my own research in order to show you practical ways of incorporating decolonial methodologies into your own research practices. My name is Olabisi Obamakin, and I'm a second year theology PhD student at the University of Exeter. I'm very excited to introduce you to my research, which is entitled Constructing a Feminist, Afropean, Hermeneutical Biblical Framework. Contextual theology recognizes that the Bible has been used as a colonial tool on the African continent, and it has privileged historical critical methods of interpretation. Whilst post-colonial biblical interpretation and African biblical interpretation have become more established in recent scholarship, with significant contributions from scholars such as Professor Musa Dube and Professor Mercy Adoyi, there has been little, if any, consideration of the particular hybrid location of scholarship, which is neither African nor European, but located in the space formed between the long historical connections between these two continents and peoples. My research, therefore, offers the first feminist Nigerian-British hermeneutical analysis of New Testament biblical characters. My thesis aims to create a new school of thought within contextual theology termed Afropean. A Nigerian-British hermeneutical framework rooted in contextual theology offers a valuable and distinct contribution to the field of biblical studies, as it plays an important part in decolonizing the field and challenging white privilege. The term Afropean originated in 1993 when David Byron first used the word with regards to the Afro pop band Zap Mama, whose sound was described to be funky African diaspora mixed with Euro-American traditions. Afropeanism is beginning to revolutionize British literature with the publication of Johnny Pitt's book, Afropean Notes from a Black Europe, in 2019. In this landmark book, he affirmed the possibility of living in and with more than one idea, Africa and Europe. Afropeanism is gaining traction, and I believe there is scope for creating its own genre within biblical studies. Afropeanism, however, is a broad contextual label. Therefore, as a Black British woman of Nigerian heritage, I have chosen to specifically create a hermeneutical lens within the female Nigerian British context. In my project, I have three main research questions. Question 1. How can female New Testament characters be read or interpreted in new ways through a feminist Nigerian British lens? 2. What are the unique questions that a feminist Nigerian British Afropean reading paradigm will have when approaching the biblical text? And finally, what challenge does this pose to the discipline of biblical studies? In order to incorporate decolonial methodologies into my research, a feminist Nigerian British lens aims to draw upon methods rooted in both global North and global South epistemology. My research, therefore, draws upon literary criticism, feminist and gender studies, postcolonial studies, anthropology, and also autoethnography. I wanted to make it as simple as possible to be taught and applied. Therefore, I've made my method into 5 simple steps. Step 1. Pick an Afropean theme and then pick a female New Testament character. The Afropean themes are derived from the main topics explored within Nigerian British literature. I identified intergenerational relationships, hair, epistemology, marriage, and body. Then you would do a literature review on the female New Testament character in order to derive the main themes that scholars have tended to explore. What has been looked over? What has been assumed in the face of no evidence? Step 2. Choose an Afropean novel. Once you've chosen a novel in line with the theme, you would then closely analyse the novel in order to derive the main micro-themes that the British Nigerian author has chosen to explore through it. 3. The author, myself, would then write an excerpt of my own autobiographical experience of the Nigerian British theme, in order to provide another way to stimulate new questions and ideas of the biblical text. Number 4. A feminist critical lens is applied at all times within the text in order to place the woman at the center of the narrative and not at the periphery. Finally, the novel and the autobiographical excerpts are juxtaposed alongside the biblical text in order to stimulate creative imagination for a new interpretation of the female character. It's important to note that these interpretations do not claim to be rooted in historical analysis, but rather they aim to suggest possible ways in which the text could be read in order to challenge the assumptions that have often been unchallenged within dominant Western interpretation. This is my way of being decolonial and trying to decenter Western epistemologies and interpretations. Today, we're going to briefly apply this new Afropean hermeneutical framework to the woman who washed Jesus' feet with her hair in Luke chapter 7, verses 36 to 50, in order to create a new interpretation. Throughout the centuries, dominant Western interpretations of this woman have hypersexualized her hair in order to portray her as a prostitute who erotically massaged the feet of Jesus. Long hair within the West has for centuries been both a gender sign and a sex symbol in our society. Dominant exegesis has therefore ignored alternative possibilities to explain this woman's unbound hair. In Emma Dabiri's book, Don't Touch My Hair, she introduces the key concept that within African epistemology, hair has power in many different ways. She goes on to say, quote, "To this day, in African and Afro-diasporic cultures, people remain hesitant about their hair falling into a stranger's hands. If someone had access to your hair, for a comb for instance, they could do witchcraft or obeah on you." End quote. My autobiographical experience of othered hair within a Western context also highlights the fact that hair can be a symbol of displacement and rejection. This is reflected in the fact that I'm often asked, when am I going to do my hair? Alluding to the fact that my hair is bad and needs to be tamed. By juxtaposing Don't Touch My Hair with my own autobiographical experience alongside the biblical text, it allowed me to ask new and exciting questions of the text. What was the potential power of this woman's hair at that time? How much did hair play into the marginalization that she faced? My feminist Nigerian British interpretation has exposed the male-dominated Eurocentric assumptions regarding hair that have informed this dominant interpretation of the woman being a prostitute. It has also highlighted the fact that hair is considered completely different within a Nigerian British context. Therefore, within a feminist Nigerian British interpretation, this woman's hair could be a symbol of colonization, otherness, and displacement. Her taking out her hair, therefore, may not be an indication that she was a prostitute, but it could have been an act of liberation, as she refused to conform to the expectations placed upon her to hide her hair. This allies with my autobiographical experience of defying Eurocentric norms and intentionally wearing an afro in a Western context. A feminist Nigerian British interpretation of this character ultimately depicts her as a positive, heroic female prophetess who vocalized her resistance to the colonialism and patriarchal control of her day through the haptic of her hair. Taking into consideration ancient Hebrew rituals, her actions could be therefore reconfigured to be the first and only prophetic enactment in the New Testament of Jesus' death and resurrection. Thank you for watching this online resource, and I hope you feel encouraged and empowered to incorporate decolonial methodologies within your PhD, no matter what field you're in.